again. What a wonderful moment this is, because they're here, they're queer, get used to it. That's right, the flagship pairing from RWBY, Blake Belladonna and Yang Xiaolong, are now undeniably, radically and blatantly and unbelievably gay and in love. I have been waiting for this to crystallize so overtly for years, and it was worth the wait, because slow burn romances are already rare, but queer slow burn romances, that might as well be the end of a rainbow for how hard those are to find. Most media romances are some version of love at first sight or drawn out will they won't they shenanigans, or the cap to a series rather than something we get to see develop and then experience as it's happening. So with this exciting news, I decided to cover the development of Bumblebee from start to finish. But that means we must go back to the before times, back to before Volume 1. Because as Aaron, Barb and several other prominent crewbie members have revealed, not only was Bumblebee always the plan, but they've been waiting for this even longer than we fans have. This has been confirmed recently in Always Open 2023 Episode 4. There's also the fact that Aaron pretty much gave the game away in the pre-Volume 1 Chapter 1 live stream before the series even properly began.
Can I mention that my character and another character are like no.
You know, I've seen it. We're about to be.
Not yet.
And this makes sense, as even in the earliest days when RWBY was more of a side project for the creators, there has been a great deal of forward planning. Salem was the 5th character invented, and the Ever After concept has been around nearly on a decade before we ever saw it. In the same vein, we can see how this informed the concept art of Blake and Yang, designed to be perfectly complementary in colours and silhouette. Even as the colour schemes changed, they always stay connected and even grow closer as the series progresses. What's more, there's how their fairy tale inspirations were framed and discussed through stuff like music. For instance, Blake is both Bella and the Beast, but Yang is also described as the yellow beauty who burns gold, who can seem ferocious but is actually kind. Essentially, their source folktales were intertwined in a way no others have been before the show even started. On another character design track, there's Yang's semblance, which allows her to absorb damage and return it to her enemy. Adam, Blake's former romantic partner and abuser, is capable of doing the same but through a weapon. He puts weapons and even people between himself and leeches power, while Yang puts herself between those she cares about and has to bear the pain to use the power. It's a contrast built into both characters on a bone-deep level. So yeah, Bumblebee started off with a strong basis in concept, theme and character before anyone in the audience had so much as seen it. Now then, Volume 1. Our stars actually meet thanks to Ruby Rose. The young huntress was venting about her troubles socializing, and the sister's attention was drawn to Blake reading by candlelight. Interestingly, you can see Yang beginning to smirk before she even knows that Ruby and Blake have met, and used that meeting as a pretext to introduce them to Blake, and pretty much instantly stumbled over herself in a bid to compliment Blake.
Hello! I like your bow. Thanks. It goes great with your pajamas. Right.
This will come back later, though things quickly became messy thanks to Blake's own wariness of people and a squabble breaking out between Yang, Ruby and Weiss. The seed, however, has been planted. When we next see them together, Blake chose to observe Yang's battle with a pair of Grimm in secret during the initiation, before jumping in to assist with the last Ursa. Despite having clearly chosen Yang as her partner, she looks away from Yang at first, giving her time to back up or look away rather than force the partnership. Yang meets her eyes and it's begun.
I could have taken him.
What's more, narratively, Blake and Yang are consistently framed alongside Juniper's romantically coded dynamics, Arcos and Renora. Pyrrha was romantically interested in Jean and specifically sought him out as a partner.
Thank you!
I'm sorry!
And Nora did the same thing with Ren. This too will come up again later. What follows proves to be an extremely comfortable and affable relationship. They find the relics without difficulty, make each other laugh and smile fondly, look to each other for advice in dangerous scenarios, and blend their skills easily on the battlefield. Of all the partnerships at Beacon, their ease is only matched by Ren and Nora's lifelong relationship, with notable romantic coding at least on Nora's end. There's not as much else to say about Volume 1, as it was a short volume, but I suppose I should also cover Sun, Blake's romantic red herring. Introduced as a jovial blonde with a friendly attitude and a penchant for excitement in combat, he has many surface-level traits in common with Yang, but we'll see that is only skin deep. He takes an obvious interest in Blake, but also establishes a recurring theme in their relationship, with him not really understanding where Blake is coming from without her spelling it out for him in detail.
Nearly 2 days and you're giving me nothing but small talk and weird looks. Yeah, like that.
This is also when he falls naturally into a role he will occupy for some years as Blake's supportive ally and exposition sponge, i.e. someone who Blake can explain the facets of Faunus and the White Fang culture to. More on this later. Some final notes on Volume 1. Beyond how easily they get along is the fact that Yang still clearly chooses to be on Blake's side even after discovering she was a terrorist. One could also argue the song Wings that plays at the end of the volume is a Bumblebee song, as it reflects Yang's nurturing attitude, and also appears again in Volume 5 as a leitmotif when Blake reunites with the team, and specifically when she sees Yang. Volume 1 by and large serves as a basis for a strong friendship between Blake and Yang, rather than out-and-out romance, but everything from the pre-series points I noted are still hard-coded into these characters. Now on to Volume 2. This is the one where we really get some wind in our sails. The volume opens showing Yang and Blake as being affectionately intimate, and Yang, Blake's current partner, being framed against Adam, Blake's former romantic partner. There's also the classic,
I love it when you're feisty,
which can almost certainly be intended to be read as flirtatious on Yang's part. The first half of Volume 2 also sees Blake cutting herself off from those around her, growing obsessed with the villain Roman and the White Fang's operations, to the point where she's exhausting herself the longer that her search goes on. Everyone grows increasingly worried, and Sun once again returns to misdiagnose Blake's emotional state and show himself as equally unsure to everyone else in Blake's circle as to how to help her.
So, what does Blake think of all this? She's still being all, Blakey?
obviously.
In contrast, Yang is entirely confident that she knows how to get through to Blake and get her to practice some self-care.
Hello! We need to talk. Yeah!
Chapter 6 is Burning the Candle is the most vulnerable we have ever seen Yang up to this point. She takes Blake aside and confesses her history of losing and being left behind by loved ones, of the collapsing of her family unit and how her bids as a small child to find her birth mother nearly ended she and her sister's lives. This also establishes Yang as someone grappling with abandonment issues. She is the girl who was always left behind, and as we saw in the previous volume when Blake was discovered as a Faunus and fled, Blake's ingrained response is to run away. Now there's a basis for some wonderful dramatic tension. Now, Blake clearly sympathizes with Yang's story, but argues against her points at first, utterly insistent that she can handle this despite the fact she can barely stand.
I can stop him! You can't even stop me!
Before then drawing her into a hug. The shocked look on Blake's face says everything. Her entire posture beforehand had been defensive, expecting retaliation and hurt, but instead she's comforted and reassured. Yang asks Blake to take care of herself, not just for herself or her goals, but for the people that care about her. Then, framed in golden light and seen from Blake's perspective, she winks and offers to save Blake a dance. This episode alone is what has led many fans to go from either not shipping Bumblebee or having thought it was merely a fun fan thing to 100% shipping them. The gorgeous lighting, the framing, the vulnerability and understanding are all fantastic. Thus, while Blake does attend the dance with Sun, she reserves her first dance for Yang. Yang herself, however, did not go to the dance with anyone. By this point, she seems to only have eyes for Blake, and as you can see when dancing, Blake's gaze is drawn to Yang. It's also worth noting that 3 days after Burning the Candle air, Monty posted a tweet saying how good romance is earned, and surrounding interviews had him and other figures referencing how characters are still young, figuring themselves out, and could well already be queer.
Asking if there will be any queer characters in RWBY.
Sure, absolutely. The best part about that is, maybe they're there now because they're kids. So we're on a path to try to help them discover themselves. A lot of us are for it. Even I have some cast members and some crew members who are like, this would be really cool. But the thing is, we can't just shove it out there. It has to be earned, which is the better way to do it. And a lot of these characters, we try to look at them outside of their gender, so we want to do what's natural for them at best.
It's also integral as ever to remember that Monty specifically said he was aiming for a show where characters were introduced one way, but then as the story went on, we uncovered more layers to them beyond the surface as opposed to them being laid bare from scene 1. This is a slow burn series, and the same is true for its romance. In essence, the emotional core, the developments from unhealthy habits to healthy, and the re-engagement with the rest of the cast, all that narrative focus and emotional heavy lifting was carried by Yang and Blake's interactions. The dance itself was nearly an afterthought for their characters compared to the intimacy and focus that was happened beforehand. Touching on the Arcos parallels again, Jean and Pyrrha have a beat-for-beat emotional conversation, followed by a deniable expression of interest, white dress, and a dance. The rest of the volume is more hyper-focused on the plot, though we do get to see elements of what Yang admires about Blake. Namely, she has faith in her ability to figure out seemingly impossibly complicated situations, and feels that she won't back down from a challenge even while Blake insists that she always runs.
How can I undo so many years of hate? I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're not one to back down from a challenge, Blake. But I am! I do it all the time. When you learned I was a Faunus, I didn't know what to do, so I ran. When I realized my oldest partner had become a monster, I ran.
This will come back later, but for now, we move on to Volume 3. The rooster has come home to roost, seeds sprout, and the final foundations are laid for what will come. The first half of the volume is a light and breezy tournament arc between friends, but as the first match in the final bracket ends and Blake rises from her seat to applaud Yang's victory,
Way to go, Yang!
the truth of the matter is actually that Yang was the victim of a hallucination semblance cast by Emerald Sistereye that convinced her she was under attack and she reacted accordingly. In the wake of this, she is vilified like the beast, disqualified from the tournament, left questioning her sanity, and worst of all, given her tearful reaction, left doubting her relationship with Blake. Because while her uncle was unhelpfully indifferent,
So, why'd you do it? All I know is that you attacked a helpless kid. So either you're lying, or you're crazy.
I'm not lying.
Crazy. Got it.
and her sister and Weiss were supportive, Blake was unsure. This all reminded her a great deal of her former partner, someone she once viewed as kind and noble, but who over time became more violent and cruel. It's triggering her trauma from her last relationship. Still, she resolves herself, and after getting Yang to meet her eyes and swear to her that she's telling the truth of what she saw, Blake is reassured. This is integral because it's another direct parallel between Blake's former romantic partner and her current partner. We see the weight the other's feelings and actions hold to one another and get a hint of Blake's relationship with Adam when she asks Yang to look her in the eyes, because Adam always wore a mask. What soon follows is pandemonium as Beacon Academy is invaded, the team is split up and no one knows what's going on. Blake is ambushed by Adam, and both Yang and Sun are presented with the chance to go and look for her, but only Yang does so. As before, this puts Yang and Blake's relationship into narrative focus as the one to watch. As Adam disarms Blake and looms over her, promising to destroy everything she loves, Yang enters the scene, frantically looking for Blake. The horror on Blake's face is unreal, and Adam sees that and promises, starting with her. He stabs Blake, drawing Yang's attention and leaving her with no real option to save Blake but to try and rush him.
Why must you hurt me, Blake?
Blake nearly sacrifices herself in a bid to get them both out of there. When we next see them, Yang is unconscious and a sobbing Blake is holding her hand, apologizing and convinced that this is all her fault.
I'm so sorry.
We also see Sun framed between the pair but not part of this heavy scene, again reinforcing Blake and Yang's narrative importance to one another through framing. When we next return to them, we find Blake has fled without explanation, but we, the audience, know why. Yang is sinking into a depression, more upset about Blake's absence than the loss of her arm. I don't think I can overstate the importance of making Blake's new partner directly parallel her former romantic partner, or the importance of it being Yang and Yang alone who stumbled on them, let alone Adam zeroing in on her as the best means to hurt Blake. This is the moment that locked Bumblebee into my mind as something that could and should happen. It's the one with the real thematic weight and narrative build-up that continues to build from here on out. A final Arcos parallel is that in Volume 3 there are frequent juxtapositions of Arcos and Bumblebee scenes going on at the same time, though that won't be happening anymore, with Pyrrha choosing the path of a warrior over safety, just as her inspiration myth did. With that, we go to Volume 4. Off the cuff, we have Blake surrounded by people in the intro, but her focus being drawn away from them and towards the edge of the scene as it transitions to Yang. And when we get to Yang early on in the volume, we see her looking at a pile of books which have always been associated with Blake before sadly turning away to watch TV. However little they might say, they are clearly on each other's minds. Skipping back to Blake, where she's reunited with Sun, where he again shows they aren't really on the same wavelength. He follows her in such a manner that she becomes legitimately distressed, and later when he joins the fight against the Si-Fei Long, he does so by jumping on her head and disrupting her attacks. It's a very blatant demonstration of how little combat synergy the pair possess, especially when compared to how easily Blake and Yang fell in sync with each other. Once things calm, Blake is hopeful that he understands her.
You're going on a one-woman rampage against the White Fang!
What? You're wrong, son. You're so wrong.
When in truth, she's going back home to recuperate, think, and also she hopes ensure that Adam will stay as far away from her team as possible. Her disappointment when Sun doesn't really get her is palpable. I'm not denigrating his desire to help here, just highlighting how the narrative consistently shows them not gelling well when it comes to serious topics. Following this, Sun mostly falls back into his usual role with Blake, prompt and receive exposition.
I really don't like you.
As it is, the main point of his presence here for himself would be getting his own narrative foil, namely Ilya, a former friend of Blake who we learn in Volume 5 was in love with her, but whom she never was more than friends with. After Sun is injured by Ilya, Blake lays everything bare about how she blames herself for everything that happened, that she's a danger to her loved ones, that she loved her team like she never thought she could love anyone else. Yet that is in of itself odd. She's had teammates, friends, and allies, and she clearly adores her parents, but it becomes clear who she means when her voice cracks as she reaches Yang's name.
Ruby? Weiss? Yang? They were my friends. And I hope they hate me for leaving.
Blake claims she had to separate herself from them to keep them safe and hopes that they hate her for what she did. Sun shows some insight here by insisting that Yang, like himself, would never hate her or regret what happened if it meant helping Blake.
But I'd do it all again if it meant protecting you. And I can promise Yang would say the same. You can make your own choices, sure. But you don't get to make ours. When your friends fight for you, it's because we want to. So stop pushing us out. That hurts more than anything the bad guys could ever do to us.
Yang's side of things is less obvious, and she was in far less focus, but one can easily read her referencing losing a part of herself to be a layered statement, not just about losing her arm, but about Blake leaving. What's more, her character song for the volume outright references the events of the fall of Beacon, recounting that in her dreams, I'm racing to her side, there's nothing that I won't do for her. Volume 4 is also when we see the release of Bumblebee, a highly romantic song that would go on to serve as part 1 for V9's Worthy, which plays in the culmination of this slow burn arc. For now though, we go on to Volume 5. This volume starts off fairly low-key on the romance front, for both these characters are rather focused on other narrative threads. Yang is seeking out her younger sister with such focus that she dismisses the chance of a proper reunion with the mother she'd spent years seeking. It's interesting to note though that she remained cool and in control of the situation, right up until Raven made a jab about her teammates letting her down, hitting Yang right where it hurts most, her abandonment issues.
Yang, please.
Listen to your friend, Yang. Your teammates never let you down before.
You don't know the first thing about my teammates! About me! You were never there! You left us!
This trend would continue when she later tries to be aloof about Blake leaving them, only to grow snappy and then separate herself from the team. Weiss finds Yang in her room holding a picture of their team, her thumb stroking Blake's visage. She breaks down for the first time, confessing she never would have held anything against Blake, would have been there for her, and asks,
how could I be there for her if she doesn't let me? What if I needed her here for me?
Important note, this happens in the same chapter that reveals Ilya was in love with Blake and that Blake was unaware of it, entitled Alone Together. This scene culminates when Weiss helps Yang work through her hurt and the false anger she's been using as a shield. Meanwhile, Blake was more cut off than this, as she had very little downtime to discuss anything but the plot. Though the brief discussion she has with Sun about the words she associated with her team does tell a great deal about how she perceives them, and Yang in particular, thanks to the way her demeanour and tone shift when discussing Yang.
I remember getting to know Ruby and thinking, this girl is the embodiment of purity.
That's why we're here. To make it better.
After a while, I saw Weiss was defiance.
My father was not the start of our name, and I refused to let him be the end of it.
And Yang was strength.
I'm not asking you to stop. Just please, get some rest. Not just for you, but for the people you care about.
However, we get a big moment from her when she finally catches up with the rest of the plot and arrives at Haven Academy to thwart the White Fang. Blake had no idea her team would even be there, but when she discovers them, the scene slows and all she and Yang can do is look at one another.
Yang?
Yang, go!
Before both are dragged back into the plot. Beyond that, we have Adam characterizing Sun specifically as a classmate, compared to considering Yang as someone Blake loves in Volume 3. This will be important later. After Yang returns from confronting her mother and securing the relic, the villains are all forced into retreat. And things end with a reunion hug between the team, started after Yang affirms that Blake being back with the team is all that matters. This is accompanied by the song of the same name, which is all about how Yang is willing to risk being hurt again just to be at Blake's side. And look at those soft expressions. Volume 5's end is also where we should probably discuss some more parallels, namely between the last generation and the current one, which is a common and recurring theme in RWBY. Ruby and Yang's parents and uncle's team, Stark, were basically the RWBY of their day, a powerful team handpicked by Ozpin to become his elite agents, a silver-eyed leader, a blonde martial artist, and a mysterious dark-haired woman with a grim past. The only one lacking a clear analogue is Weiss, but the parallels with Stark are fairly mixed across the board, e.g. Weiss and Raven have swords with revolving dust chambers, and Ruby and Crow wield scythes and have capes, but this still serves our purposes. You see, Raven is Yang's birth mother, but not her mum. She vanished when Yang was a baby. She has the power to see her or anyone else she loves anytime she wants, but she chooses to keep her loved ones at a distance for her own safety and emotional comfort. She clearly isn't a happy person, but she sticks with this decision despite that. Meanwhile, Yang's father, Tai Yang, was clearly broken from the loss of Summer and Raven abandoning him. He won't even let her come up in conversation or be talked about around Yang, growing snappy when she comes up.
The Broadway twins have always been interesting, to say the least.
Come on, man, she's right here.
Oh, please. She's a mature young woman.
That's not the issue, Pete. And besides, she's still a teenager. Adult or not, you still got a long way to go before you're ready for the real world.
Oh my gosh, does every father figure just have the same 3 condescending phrases?
Yeah, but we only use them when we mean it.
Is that so?
As a matter of fact, it is so!
And even when he does willingly discuss her, it's clearly something he doesn't want to do. In essence, both Blake and Yang fell into these same initial traps, but where Tai essentially broke and has never seemingly recovered or addressed his feelings, Yang, whether she was ready to or not, put herself back out there, confronted her pain and was able to move past it. Where Raven fled due to losing faith in the war and wanting to retreat to protect herself, Blake left to protect others. Where Raven is dismissive of the impact of her actions, Blake wanted to be hated for them. When Raven ran at the end of the volume, Blake returned and she stayed. And here begins Volume 6, where the subtext is rapidly becoming text. But first, a quick digression to the Adam trailer, mostly to the part where he gaslights Blake into accepting him murdering people senselessly on missions. He throws her parents in her face, puts words in her mouth and guilts her by claiming he fears that she'll abandon him. We can see her trying to look him in the eyes, but as ever, they are hidden by a mask. Now for the volume itself. For the bees, we open on Yang with the rest of the team and Blake seeing Ilya and Sun off, giving the latter a peck on the cheek as they part ways after he says she's with the one she needs to be with. His friend and partner Neptune even comments it's a shame before being dismissed by Sun, arguing that his chasing after Blake was never about that, after which Sun largely drops out of the main narrative and falls into the books. While travelling on the Argus Express, Blake shows herself to be extremely concerned over Yang, racing to get her bags down for her despite Yang not needing or wanting her to. But despite her annoyance, Yang reassures Blake that they will be fine, they just need a little time to readjust. See Ruby and Weiss watching them grinning like fools over their relationship. The casual vibe is quickly interrupted by a grim attack, and we see Blake and Yang fall seamlessly back into their old routine, coordinating and joking easily.
Good to see you're not rusty.
After the train derails, leaving the team separated, tensions are running high, but one should note how Blake's eyes consistently trail after Yang even when there's no need to. This will become a trend for both of them. Those left behind in the train crash are having to come to grips with some extremely horrifying revelations about the impossible task before them.
And though I gave him my answers,
How do I destroy Salem?
not all of them were to his liking. You can't.
The team finds themselves in Brunswick Farm, a settlement where everyone seemingly died in their sleep, but they're stuck there due to the cold and the snow. The town is actually infested with the apathy, grim that exhausts people by mere proximity and slowly rob them of their will to do so much as anything. Their hidden presence leaves everyone extra on edge, though we can see Blake making an effort to stay close to Yang, despite the latter's spiraling mood. Soon after their arrival, Blake and Yang separate themselves from the rest of the cast, and Yang's PTSD flares up. Blake is quick to try and comfort her, speaking of how Adam's real strength isn't in his fighting ability but his manipulation, how he'd get in her head and make her feel small. It was going great up until Blake promised to protect Yang, hurting her with this apparent lack of faith in her abilities, treating Yang like she needs protecting when that isn't what she wants, and causing Yang to storm off. As their confrontation with the apathy winds down, however, Blake, who nearly died, is clearly still in shock, and enough so that Yang, after looking her over, takes her hand and leads her out of the room. The next moment isn't strictly Bumblebee, but it is useful. An old and long since retired huntress, Maria, commends the next generation for, in some cases, already being emotionally stronger than she was following an incident that left her blinded. She very pointedly glances at Yang as she says this. This was Maria commenting on Yang getting back into the world after losing her arm, while Maria lambasts herself for choosing to hide. Given what Blake said in Volume 5 regarding Yang's strength, this was a good reminder to her that despite the wounds she suffered, Yang is no damsel. Things ease up between the two of them again as they all arrive in the city of Argus, Blake fondly watching Yang play and coo over Jean's nephew.
Yes, you are. Oh, look at your little face.
It's followed up with an elaborate mission to secure an aircraft in which Yang drives Blake out into the wilderness to sabotage a radio and, well, just watch these adorable fools.
You sure I shouldn't come with? More intruders means we're more likely to be seen. Besides, stealth isn't exactly your, I mean, you're great, and I'll hurry back. Go.
Heading in on foot? Won't be long.
Unfortunately, the plan goes pear-shaped.
I thought you said you knew their jargon!
Jargon was fine, but our pilots aren't elderly women.
Oh, well, they got me there.
Adam's been waiting for Blake to be alone since the Grim attacking the Argus Express and ambushed Blake, intent on punishing her for her defiance and his defeat at Haven.
Why did you have to come into my life and ruin everything?
You stalked me across Anima! I don't want anything to do with your life!
Despite having no reason to regard him well and fighting like hell, Blake does continue trying to reason with him, to try and get him to leave. She doesn't give up on people.
All sorts of people in all sorts of ways. But no one hurt me quite like you. You didn't leave scars. You just left me alone.
Having become alarmed when Blake stopped reporting in, Yang had taken off into the wilderness and arrives in the nick of time.
I'm not alone.
Yang doesn't promise to fight for Blake or to save her, but merely assures her that Yang will buy her time to catch her breath. Adam is also key to this moment, Blake's former partner in both combat and romance, staring down her current partner and seeing her as a romantic rival. Unlike Sun, he uses Yang's name and insists that they have business to settle. The fight is fierce, and Blake reveals the nature of Adam's semblance and its similarities to Yang, Adam growing increasingly infuriated all the while, so much so that Blake and Yang merely looking at one another is enough to send him into a fit of rage. Yang offers an adamant out, but the moment he sees her hands shaking, he tries to undermine her confidence, only to be countered by Blake.
Are you just trying to scare me away so you won't have to die trying to protect her?
She's not protecting me, Adam. And I'm not protecting her. We're protecting each other.
This was the moment of understanding between the pair. Yang can see the kind of danger Adam poses and why Blake would try to lure him away from the people she cares about, and Blake can now see Yang wants an equal partnership and follows it up by affirming her intention to never leave again. Blake won't be the girl who runs anymore. Adam follows it up by trying to get under their skin, directly comparing his romantic relationship with Blake to Yang's, only for Yang to see right through his manipulations.
You know, she made a promise to me once that she'd always be at my side. And look how well she's kept it.
Did she make that promise to you? Or to the person you were pretending to be?
Despite the danger and them offering him a chance to leave, Adam resolves to kill them both and is defeated by the pair. Struck low in his last desperate gamble to kill Blake backfires twice over. Blake breaks down crying from the murder, the trauma from the grief of it all, and tries to assure Yang she won't break her promise. Yang, remembering how Blake stressed eye contact 3 volumes earlier, ensures that Blake can see her eyes when she acknowledges Blake's promise.
I'm not gonna break my promise. I swear. I know you won't.
Also, this is the point where the Beauty, Bella and the Beast parallels become most blatant. We had a few light homages early on, but this fight is where they start paying full-on homage to the fairy tale source. I mean, just look at this stuff. After this, we also see them sitting close together in a way that evokes Ren and Nora at the end of Volume 4, hands interlinked, significant glances sent Yang's way that she seems bashful over. As before, I really cannot stress enough the narrative and thematic importance of Yang being framed as Adam's rival for Blake's affection, of being the one to stand at her side in this final confrontation. But with the battle done and Argus saved, which was a whole other story, we land on Volume 7. Yang and especially Blake take something of a back seat in this volume, having been major players in the last couple. This does not, however, mean their ship is still not sailing. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Blake and Yang have slid back into their old, comfortable relationship quite naturally, fond eye rolls and all.
Maybe we should pick up the pace.
There's also a lot of silent background communication between the pair that is not shown with other characters, constantly silently conferring. One of the first things Blake does upon repairing her weapon is line it with gold, which is both a reference to the practice of kintsugi for repairing things that are broken and an obvious homage to Yang, taking on a dash of her favourite colour. As you can see, Yang had Blake's violet on hand for a long time. We also see that Yang remains a disaster at flirting when she walked all the way around a large area just so she could stare doe-eyed at Blake's new haircut.
Sorry, just not used to the new hair yet.
Is it bad?
No, it's good. Great, even.
Man, I did not sign up to be a babysitter.
The reactions from outside help frame this and show what's going on. Following that, Yang is also the first to notice when Blake is distressed and to see if she's okay, and Blake is the only one who laughs at Yang's corny jokes. There's of course the adorable selfie scene, Blake leading an exhausted Yang out of bed, Blake falling asleep in Yang's lap, and of course Ace Operative Marrow highlighting that the pair almost always team up.
Hey, have you two ever thought about branching out a little? Really good stuff. Yeah, keep it up.
Plus the bedroom eyes of this scene on their not date with Team Funky and getting ready to dance together.
That's what I'm doing.
Hey, Oscar and I are hitting the movies if anyone wants to... Oh, okay.
We also see Ren and Nora debating their own romantic relationship using Blake and Yang as proxies, Nora insisting that they essentially are dating, while Ren insinuating one of them might not be ready. Nora then, like Pyrrha, tries to bridge the gap by throwing herself into a kiss. With Pyrrha, it was a tragic moment of surrender, of jumping ahead on things she'd never get to really do. For Nora, it's an attempt to bypass the increasing complexity and strain of her and Ren's relationship rather than confronting it. Suffice to say, it doesn't work. It's not all adorable and fun background stuff, however. When Team Ruby is ordered to help ambush and arrest activist-turned-vigilante Robin Hill, Blake is extremely uncomfortable at the idea, just as Yang is leery of not showing General Ironwood all the information given how much he's putting on the line for his plans. The pair have a deep conversation about it, along with Blake's grief over being forced to murder someone. You can see her body language and expressions growing more closed off as it goes on. She expects to be ignored. Instead, Yang listened to her and decided to support Blake's idea, turning their ambush into a fact-sharing mission and an olive branch to Robin, something that Ironwood had consistently refused to make himself do up to this point, despite everyone saying it would be a good idea. You can see the moment when Blake realizes Yang is actually listening to her. The shadow fades from her face, her ears rise, and her posture opens up. This is an entirely different relationship to her dynamic with Adam. We get a few more background scenes showing their closeness, but the main cap-off in Volume 7 is their godlike coordination against the Aesops. This volume kept the pair mostly to the background, but this allowed an incredible amount to be told through their more lighthearted interactions, but the spotlight was put on them when it needed to be to signify the depth and healthiness of their relationship. We follow all this up with Volume 8, the volume that shows Blake and Yang's first, what we could call it, fight. The various team members cannot agree on what to prioritize and have to split up, Blake siding with Ruby and going with her team, and Yang leading her own side of things elsewhere. Blake's shown to be rather forlorn throughout this separation, and when they can't contact Yang is shown to have been constantly dialing her number in worry. Yang meanwhile is shown to be quite dour, wondering if Blake will think less of her for the decisions that she's made. Their reunion is one of the most heavily romantically coded moments they've had up to this point. Blake is still nervous thanks to their disagreement, past experience with Adam leaving its mark, but as you can see, Yang is nothing like Adam. Also, Blake Belladonna is still failing the Take Your Eyes Off Yang challenge. Things grow more intense when the team's plan to evacuate the population of Mantle and Atlas are interrupted by the vengeful pair of Cinder and Neo. Yang throws herself between Ruby and a sneak attack. We can see then Weiss having to forcefully drag a sobbing Blake back from throwing herself into the void after Yang, only to eventually turn and try to take Neo off the board by the throat. It doesn't work, and she does turn her focus to protecting others who need the help more than Ruby does, but ultimately they all still fall. And thus, finally, we have reached Volume 9, the ultimate volume for bees, you might say. Bees City, even. Blake and Yang's reunion says so much already. She gives Yang and Ruby enough time to talk before diving in for a hug. The muffled Yang and gentle cradling just melts the heart. We also see that Yang is continuing to lose the Take Your Eyes Off Blake challenge, followed with this little flirtatious scene where Blake somehow talks in italics.
So would you say he caught you unarmed? How disarming.
We also see that Yang, despite having plenty of reason to be angry at the person who stole her arm, yielding to Blake's desire for diplomacy until that's completely off the table. With the next episode, we have Yang blatantly strutting her stuff and settling her gaze on Blake as she does so, and soon after leaving Blake blushing intensely from Yang cheering her on. We also see Blake zeroing in on Yang so much in a fight that an enemy actually gets a blow in against her. Following their shrinking, the two are essentially always side by side, and even when sitting with Weiss, they are notably closer to each other. And thus we finally reach the Punderstorm, a natural event in the Ever After that manifests when people are stuck at an intense crossroads that forces them to either wait it out or resolve their own uncertainty. Yang and Blake find themselves cut off from the rest of the group, isolated on unfinished bridges with a single platform connecting them. It's only when Blake says that she will feel a lot better once they're together on said platform that the bridge begins adding new pieces to itself. And once again, Yang follows it up by proving that she is terrible at flirting.
I'm sure you'll figure it out, though. You're good at that. You think so? Well, yeah. You've got a really good brain. Okay, that did something.
And at this point, I think I can safely say that she was indeed flirting back in Volume 1, and some of her phrasing being a direct callback to the campfire scene in Volume 2 is a nice touch. Back then, she also expressed a similar admiration for Blake's ability to figure things out even when they're seemingly impossible. Yang also compliments Blake's ears and gains another board for herself. She claims not to know how, but the deflection through humor is a core trait of Yang. She knows what this is, and so does Blake, who's vocalizing it for the both of them. Maybe it's saying things we've never said about each other. At that, the beautiful music begins to roll in. Yang offers Blake the chance to go first, always putting others before herself and letting Blake set the tone. She was completely unprepared for the level of sincerity Blake would start with. Highlighting Yang's bravery, her efforts to light even the most dire situations, these factors are at Yang's heart. It's what she always has done, how she kept herself and other people going, and Blake caps it off with, "You do what you say." This is integral because Blake's past relationships weren't honest, weren't reliable or trustworthy, but her relationship with Yang is. She even evokes Yang, lightening the situation just as Yang would with a "try to keep up." It's such a contrast to the girl we met in Volume 1. She's so open with her joy now. Yang comes at it more shyly, but just as genuinely, expressing that she likes that Blake was never intimidated by her. More Beast analogues. As this volume has especially reminded us, Yang can be seen as very scary, but she isn't, and that this was true even before the two of them became close. Blake notes, "I was wary of people in general," but Yang expands on that. "But you never gave up on them. Even when they hurt you, you never give up. You know what matters to you." Yang knew as far back as Volume 2 that Blake wouldn't back down from a challenge, even before Blake herself did. Yang is someone who has struggled with purpose, with will, with feeling worth something, and it's clear how much she admires Blake in these. I just love all of this. It is a triumphant moment for them. There's no need to bring up past baggage or worries of the future. They can just exist here in this moment together and speak from their wholehearted admiration for one another. Their steps increase and Yang says, "Let's make this quicker. Any big truths we haven't dropped on each other yet?" Not realizing she's done what Blake was hoping for, opened the floor to discuss their love. But she sees it in Blake's eyes. The storm fades, the sky shines, but Yang hesitates. So used to losing people, so unused to being vulnerable, to thinking she could be worth more than her service to others, she doesn't want to risk what they have now. The bridge grows further apart and Blake can see why. Did you just think of something but didn't say it? She's worried, but not of Yang not sharing her feelings, but for Yang's own uncertainty, her nervousness. Yang's left flushing, fiddling with her hair shyly, murmuring, "That can't be what this is about." But looking at Blake, it's clear as day how certain she is, how much she wants this.
It's like a cliff. And if I do it, I'm just going to fall. I think we're already falling. Just say it, Yang.
Despite her obvious love, Yang still gives Blake an out using the I think method, which helps mask her own fear of rejection. But Blake can't even wait for Yang to finish before showing how much it means to her. She can't let there be a moment of uncertainty, of doubt. She wants to say this and she wants Yang to know that she loves her. The distance vanishes. They are both now on the platform as the colours in the sky merge around them. The music swells and lilies spring to life around them. Lilies are often used in weddings to signify rebirth, purity, or a new chapter, and since RWBY is also paying big homage to anime, it serves as a direct reference to the yuri/girls love genre of anime and manga, yuri literally meaning lilies. This triples as a homage to the song Bumblebee, or the song was a call forward to this very moment, maybe both given the music swelling has been described as part 2 of that very song. They close the remaining distance. Yang is cautious of Blake's boundaries and Blake is encouraging her forward with an eager smile. This isn't like any moment before it. No one is jumping ahead. They're both here in the moment and they're both ready. They kiss and the moment is sublime.
I could have taken him. I'll save you a dance.
I'm sorry, Yang. And I hope they hate me for leaving.
I'm not gonna break my promise. I know you won't.
This is a moment 10 years in the making, 2 characters, 2 arcs that have woven together across a decade, coming together in this one perfect moment of purest love. It couldn't have come before now. They needed to confront their demons, overcome their traumas, needed to begin as friends and rediscover one another. They needed time where they could be together and not have that moment overwhelmed by some new plot hook or foe. This moment was a testament to the characters and a labour of love from every writer and artist involved. They poured so much into this scene and it is all breathtaking. And now we will get to see Blake and Yang be together as a genuine romantic couple for the rest of the series. This is a slow burn romance and it was done magnificently.
Did we miss anything?
Feels like I've been waiting forever for that.
And that's all for today. If you'd like to help support my work, please swing by my Patreon. If you'd like to commission 3D models, please hit up my Ko-fi. Thanks for tuning in.